Edward is one of the oldest engines on the Fat Controller's railway. He is also one of the most well-respected engines as well. He shunts trucks and pulls coaches too. All the passengers love to see Edward and love to ride in his carriages. One evening, Edward brought his last train into Wellsworth Station, just as the Fat Controller arrived. "Edward," he boomed, "I have an important job for you tomorrow." Edward was excited. He liked important jobs. Unfortunately, while working at the quarry earlier today, Toby hit a slab of rock and broke his cow catchers, so he won't be able to pull his milk tomorrow. "Oh dear," groaned Edward. "I hope he'll be alright soon." "Yes, well, I want you to take his milk for him," said the Fat Controller. "It's a very important job." Edward was excited. He hurried off to Tidmouth Sheds to get a good night's sleep ready for the morning. On his way back to Tidmouth Sheds, Edward began to think about something. "I don't want tomorrow to turn out like the day I had to take Percy's mail for him," thought Edward worriedly. "I know. I'll go and ask Toby now how he delivers his milk." Edward soon arrived at the works. Toby was in the work shed at the back of the works. 2 workmen were working on his cow catchers. Toby was very pleased to see Edward. "Good evening, Toby," said Edward politely. "How are you feeling now?" "I'm feeling much better now that I know you're taking my milk," said Toby. "I can't think of any engine that would be more suited for the job than you, Edward." Edward smiled and said, "I've come to ask you how you deliver the milk." "Oh, that's easy," said Toby, and he explained everything to Edward. "Thank you," said Edward. "I'll be going home to Tidmouth Sheds now. I'm going to need all the rest I can get for tomorrow." "That's a good engine," laughed Toby, and he watched as Edward reversed out of the works. Early the next morning, Edward puffed tiredly out of Tidmouth Sheds and away to Brendam Docks. Edward puffed quickly into the Brendam Docks. He whistled, "Beep beep, hello Fergus," and then coupled to his milk tankers. But Fergus was looking sad. "What's the matter, Fergus?" Edward asked. "I have to take both of these milk tankers around Sodor," he said. "Then I have to come back and collect those 2. And then in place of Toby, I have to go work at the quarry. It's all too much for me," he moaned. Edward remembered about how Toby delivers the milk. "I have to take 2 milk tankers to Knapford and 1 to Wellsworth," he said. "Then Fergus takes 2 to Wellsworth, 1 to Maron and 1 to Knapford. He's right, it is too much for him." "Tell you what, Fergus," said Edward. "I'll take both of those milk tankers in the siding and deliver all 3 to Knapford. Then I could deliver those 2 to Wellsworth for you. Then all you have to do is go to Maron and Wellsworth. It'll be a lot easier for me too, as my next passenger train is at Wellsworth." Fergus was delighted. "Thank you, Edward," he smiled happily. So Edward's milk tankers were uncoupled from the brake van. Then he coupled his 3 milk tankers to Fergus's spare tankers. Then he pushed the spare brake van into a siding. And was then coupled up to his original brake van. Edward then set off proudly. "Goodbye, Fergus," he said. "Good luck with your milk train." "Oh, and good luck to you too, Edward," said Fergus, "and thank you very much for helping me." Edward knew that with 2 more milk tankers than usual, The milk train would be different to how Toby would deliver it. But he didn't worry. He puffed over the top of Gordon's Hill and down the other side. Then he huffed and puffed through Henry's tunnel. Then Edward steamed swiftly into Knapford Station. The station master was glad to see him, and told Edward to put 3 milk tankers in the sidings. And so Edward did just that. He shunted 3 milk tankers into the siding, and was then coupled up to the remaining 2, and he puffed quickly away to Wellsworth Station. But in order to do so, Edward had to go round multiple loop lines, but it didn't bother him at all. He had to go through the brick wall tunnel, and through the busy junction, and finally Edward was on the right track to go to the viaduct, which led him straight to Wellsworth. Edward loved the viaduct, as he could see every part of the island of Sodor. Finally, Edward came to the last part of the line, which led him straight into Wellsworth. Edward reversed into the platform, where the station master was there to greet him. "Right on time," he said proudly. "Now you may take your passengers." Edward was now uncoupled from the milk tankers and steamed away to take the train. "And now you may take your passengers." Edward was uncoupled from the milk tankers and he steamed away to couple up to his passenger train. For the rest of the week, Edward took the milk, and he enjoyed doing it too. For the rest of the week, Edward took the milk, and he enjoyed doing it too. He was never late once, and the Fat Controller was very pleased with him. Before long, Toby's cowcatchers were mended, and he puffed away. Toby steamed into the docks, excited to take his milk again. But when he was coupled to the milk, he was surprised to find that 5 milk tankers were coupled to him, not just 3. Fergus explained the change of plan. Edward thought it would be wiser just to take all 3 milk tankers to Knapford at once. That then left him to take 2 milk tankers to Wellsworth so he could take his train. "But I don't have a train to take from Wellsworth," Toby said worriedly. "So I would have to go to Wellsworth, then travel all the way across the island to get back to Knapford to take Catherine." "Well, it was also due to the fact that I had to go to the quarry in place of you. But I still have to work at the quarry, because now Bill has had an accident. He and Ben got into a fight, and you can work it out from there." Toby was upset. He couldn't manage 5 milk tankers. He could just about manage the 3 he had to take. "Sorry I can't wait," said Fergus. "I have to go. Otherwise my milk will be late." And Fergus puffed away, leaving Toby in a state of shock. Toby struggled and struggled. It was hard work to get 5 milk tankers moving. But slowly but surely, Toby managed to get out of the docks. But it was very hard work. It was so difficult that for the rest of that week, Toby was always late. "You're late, Toby," sighed the station master. "I'll have to have a word with the Fat Controller about this. If you can't get to Wellsworth on time, then the Fat Controller will know." Toby was later still, having to go round the loop lines, He trundled sadly and slowly towards the viaduct. Toby trundled sadly and slowly up the hill towards the viaduct. He and Edward were both old engines, but Toby was a steam tram, and found it much more difficult to climb hills than Edward did. And he found it much less fun zooming down the hills than Edward did. He was taking so long that he was keeping Daisy waiting. "Come on, you old steam pot," she mumbled. "You're taking up my time, and the passengers don't like being late." This was the latest Toby had ever been. And the station master had lots to say about it too. "I'm sorry, Toby, the Fat Controller has to know about any late engines, no matter which ones they are." So Toby trundled sadly away back to Knapford, on the other side of the island. And the late milk train made him late with his passengers. The Fat Controller was there at Knapford waiting for him. "I know how much the milk train means to you, Toby," he said sadly, "but I can't always have the milk being late. I'll have to give it back to Edward, I'm afraid." Toby felt worse than ever, and he trundled sadly away with his passengers, who were the only ones who understood his problem. When the Fat Controller told Edward that he was able to take the milk again, he was very excited. But he didn't know that he was to take it instead of Toby because his plan hadn't worked. Edward arrived back at Titnell's sheds after taking the milk once more. He was very tired. Just then, Toby steamed in. He was very cross, and he rang his bell loudly. "Oh," said Edward, "it's you, Toby. What can I do for you?" "You can apologise for changing the milk round," he said crossly. Edward was puzzled. "I didn't mean to change it entirely," he said. "I only wanted to do it a bit differently to help Fergus while he was working at the quarry instead of you. But now the Fat Controller is cross with me because I'm always late. I can't handle 5 milk trucks like you can, Edward." "I shall be at the quarry with Mavis when you're ready to apologise, in case you want to come and steal that job as well," fumed Toby, and he hurried away. Thomas, Percy and James were in the sheds too, and they had heard every word that Toby had said. "Bust my buffers!" exclaimed James. "I've seen Toby angry, but not that angry." "I know," said Thomas. "To think that Edward would want to steal all of Toby's jobs." "What are you going to do, Edward?" Percy asked. The shed doors were closed and Edward fell asleep, thinking all about Toby.